Hi, everyone. Sheri-D here again from the Joy Kogawa House in Vancouver. And today's guest is the very, very special C.R. Avery. Well, C.R. Avery is a local hero here in Vancouver. He's
spelling my T all over myself is what I'm doing.
Yes, you are. He's one of my favorite people on earth. He lives art. Art lives inside of him. He's the real thing. Some people say he's a bohemian. I just think he's a true artist. He makes films. He makes music. He makes beatbox. He makes poetry. And he makes everyone around him filled with joy just to be around him. And that's a rare quality, and I'm really happy to see you today, and I'm glad that you made it here. I mean, you're artist in residence here right now. Tell me about that.
It's weird to hear compliments. It's the same. It's a funny dance. I must say, it's very beautiful coming from your mouth, but it's weird how it makes you feel.
I would say, you, in my mind, you're one of the most important artists in Canada. And you are our Tom Waits, really. We're very lucky to have you. Your music is astounding, and your words are they're earth-shattering. And I love, the work you do. Your films are outrageous, and they're low-budget films, and they are outrageously good. And so you do all these different things. You're a man of many hats.
Yeah, maybe sometimes I'm Canada's Patti Smith or Canada's Jim Jarmusch. So I'm definitely from here.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that you've seen some of my films.
Well, I have seen them. I've seen all of your films. I even begged him at one point to be in one of his films. And I know that I'm going to be in one of his films one day.
We could do that easy.
Yeah, I think I should be.
Fantastic, yeah.
Well, I would do anything. Let's do it.
Okay.
We've worked together throughout the years. And every time that I work with you, we have no rehearsal whatsoever. And yet we find the same silences.
I mean, the conversation could start here. Because the truth is, we like the words. I mean, I could see when hip-hop started, I know your ears popped up. And I was like, that's something new. And, the same way when you first heard Ginsberg with The Clash, or a movie with amazing dialogue, or, and I think that's where it runs through us. And there's a love. And there's a lot of people that just stop at a certain age. It's like skateboarding. It was cool, was something fun in your 20s. And then you go to real life. And there's just something about it, slugging it out through some funky, because I do these things, but I just saw one of these that I really like. It was Jack White with Rick Rubin, and in the middle of it, Neil Young is recording, and he just walks into the podcast. Hey, what's up, guys? And Jack was asked. He said that, that in my 40s, whatever, everyone's like, "What are you going to be doing in 30 years?" And he goes, "Well, I'm at the age where I'm looking at Dylan, Neil Young, Tom Waits," and he goes, "I'll be doing this." But there was a time, I remember in Neil Young's book that his dad wrote, Scott Young, and Neil was in that. He's a dad, and the 60s and 70s were over, and his dad, and he was raising his kids, and his dad's like, rock and roll could be like jazz, because you see Miles is still going. And then he said to his dad, "Yeah, Dad, I'm going to be 70 playing, Down by the River." And his dad was right. It has become jazz.
Yeah.
You know, but it's bumpy, and I've always admired all my peeps that don't quit. Like, I don't have to love so and so's music or so and so's poetry, but if they're still doing it,
Yeah.
it's rock and roll.
I remember when things got really rough at one point when I was younger, and I think I was like, I ran out of cigarettes, I ran out of toilet paper, I ran out of money, and I ran out of food all on the same day. And I phoned Martin Goderna, painter, and said, I ran out of cigarettes, and I was crying. And the artists got together and they sent over this box, this care package. And I was just sitting there looking at that care package, and it was like macaroni, it was just an orange, a banana, a package of cigarettes. I mean, it was just really, and I thought, we're all in this together. We're artists.
And I think that's the hard switch is, you know, there was a time when we all lived on commercial because it was cheap. And when someone was playing, it was down the street.
Yeah.
So you'd walk down the street to go see someone's new project or new show and then walk home. And there were some venues that if you played regularly, then you didn't pay to go check other people out.
Yeah.
And so we're all just in this thing, like, I wouldn't have done burlesque. I wouldn't have done spoken word. I wouldn't have done punk. It was the neighborhood, you know, because I was getting inspired by the other people. But that's the thing is, like, when that area gets gentrified, all the artists disperse and there's no more care packages coming when you're out of cigarettes.
Yeah.
And that's when you gotta...
That's when it gets challenging.
That's when you gotta, you know... Like Bukowski says, you know, you write a play in your 20s and everyone's like, oh, you wrote a play. You write a play in your 50s and people are like, oh God. You know, like and it has to kill now. And
Yeah.
you have to, and you know, we know like the party's always over. That's why Duke Ellington is so beautiful, is because he survived. He was the last orchestra to stand through the Depression. Mm-hmm. You know, and all the trends. You know, Louis had his #1 hit when the Beatles hit.
But
and so
it's the old Stanislavski thing. Do you find yourself inside the art, or do you find the art inside of yourself? And I used to have that above my desk. Do you find yourself in the art, or the art inside yourself? And if you find the art inside yourself, there is no birth and there is no death. There is only breath and survival and delving into new worlds and trying new things and experimenting and failing and playing and screwing up and, you know, and then hitting that moment of ping where the magic takes place, and that is worth $1 million. It's worth $1 million, whatever it is that of $1 million that you really like. But it's and when you make a film and it speaks to people, and you know, I watched the viewing of your recent film like a couple of years ago, and there was like, in the community, there was like 500 people there, and they all walked down the drive and they came to that theater, and there was a huge lineup, and everybody was thrilled, and there was this energy in the air, and it felt like yesterday, and it felt like tomorrow. And there is no time in that. There is no birth, there is no death, there's no time. Because timeless is the only thing that artists live. And so there is no reward, there's no success, and there's no failure, only within the art itself. And the rest of it is just noise that is meaningless. And we live in a world that looks for meaning in mostly the wrong directions. There isn't any meaning. And the things that do have meaning are the things that move us. And the things that move us come from art.
I was talking, Catherine's not here right now, but I find it neat that, my favorite poets aren't poets. I just mean in the sense like the person that you meet at the bar is very interesting, but the voices I really lately was clinging to or inspired by was a cook, a punk, and a boxer, and it just shows it doesn't matter, like or like a sailor that writes that beautiful song that I just discovered Stan Rogers recently too. Mm-hmm. But like Anthony Bourdain, he's writing about food, but the motherfucker was alive. Like he was fucking alive. And when he tells you to slow down, have a Negroni, just talk to the person beside you, take in the day. And then with Patti Smith, like, I like Patti's music. I like who she is. But Just Kids was fucking crazy. Like, it was one of those books where everyone was reading it and giving it to someone when they had finished it. And then with Ali said, I'm not fighting Vietnam. And so they took away his boxing license. And the only way he could support his family is speaking at universities. But he was a boxer. Like, do you want to see Joe Blow that plays football speak? And he was awful. He was reading from the Quran. He was lecturing people. He was yelling. But because he had to keep doing it to support his family, he started to do like he did with his boxing. He started mastering how to talk to a crowd. So then, 9 years go by, and he gets his boxing license back, and he's back on TV. He knew, he would like explain things, that you would go, oh God, he nailed it. And it's just neat that those are my three that just have been rocking me. Mm-hmm. And they came, and then so they made their life, like you said, something worth living. Mm-hmm. They were poet cooks. They were poet boxers. They were poet punks, Mm-hmm. And like the last thing that I was in a rut, and it was from Orson Welles, F for Fake. And he doesn't do any cinema tricks. There's no violins. There's no nothing. He just talks. And there's just some basic shots of architecture. And I'm like, that's my T.S. Eliot. That's my Yeats. Like, he just fucking nailed it. Mm-hmm. And I needed that. Mm-hmm. And who knew, the filmmaker showed up that day, Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I just, the whole thing of this and the podium and words, it is neat that it's everywhere.
Yeah. Where did it start for you?
Chuck Berry.
Chuck Berry. Yeah. And
Well,
how old were you?
Little. It's just a lot of country musicians talk about that Chuck he had the blues beat, like he was on chess. But Maybelline's a country shuffle. And the art of telling stories has always been country music. Yep. So it was like he took the storytelling. It wasn't just like that feeling of blues and of heartache. It was like Maybelline, Monkey Business, Johnny Be Good. This is poetry. Like if Hank Williams was the hillbilly Shakespeare, then he's the first poet, the second poet after Hank Williams on the jukebox. And I just, you're a kid and you just hear Deep Down in Louisiana, Coastal New Orleans, and it was a story. I was a country kid. Mm-hmm. I found out recently the original lyric was Colored Boy, and he changed it to Country Boy so it would reach more people. Mm-hmm. But I was a country kid, so it hit me. But anyways, Chuck Berry. And I think that's true for a lot of cats.
It's true enough. And what projects are you working on now?
I wrote it's on the borderline of a novel. It's maybe making out with a novella, but it's like 210.
Mm-hmm.
And I disappeared. I really did. I was like, after the poetry books, and you're like, there's only so many people that read poetry books.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I was like, scripts. Let's try scripts, because then it's like visual art. And then it's like movies are so expensive, and to bust into Netflix or any kind of eyes are going to get on it is very tricky.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was like, okay, what's another medium where it doesn't cost me a fortune and I don't have to penetrate that film world? And I was like, novel, you just got to do the work
Mm-hmm.
by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that for 2 years.
You went up on a mountain, didn't you?
I went to a lot of remote places. I started it in New Zealand
Oh.
and then worked a bunch in Honolulu on it. But right now I'm at the crossroads where it's done, but all my connections are poetry. And it was like when we were young and we were trying to go from being spoken word yellers to get a book deal for our poetry.
Yeah.
And then that happened, and then I thought, okay, I'm good. But then the novel is like, and it seems like everything's regional now. Like to get it out there. Like if I want to tour Ireland, I should sell it to an Irish publisher. But anyways,
UK.
Yeah.
I could see that. I could see
so
that.
that was a big undertaking.
That could happen. That, you're Irish, aren't you?
Yeah, I got it in me. Well, I think it's tricky because, I mean, it's like I just watched Bono in Rattle and the Hum screaming at his audience going, I'm so tired of you Irish Americans going, we support the rebels, we support the cause, when you haven't been to our fucking country in 20 years and you haven't seen bodies blown up in front of you. You can romanticize it here. So that's the thing. Like, I'm Irish, but I haven't, I don't know the troubles. I'm not dealing with a grandfather who dealt with the troubles. I love touring there. I did Glastonbury, and the Brits were kind of standoffish with me, but the Irish weren't.
Yeah.
And then we left the sites of Glastonbury, and there's like, once the last act plays, they open up this separate part. It's like after hours. And the Irish gypsies had dug a hole in a mountain.
Yeah.
And it was a pipe. Like the kids under a bridge. And there was a guy, Blackbeard, sunglasses, and like when someone came out of the tunnel, he would let another person in. And then so you go in and it's packed. Like in this mountain, they've hung a chandelier from the dirt. It's completely acoustic. And then that whole Irish thing, like talking about another side of poetry where you can hear a pin drop. And they're like, in 1842, and telling the story. And then it's, then the band kicks in and the whole place moshes. And then everyone stops. And then in 1846. And it's like, it's combining punk energy with pin drop poetry. It was awesome. So I started to tour Ireland after that because I'm like, okay, Brits, until the next Stones arrive, I'm going to Ireland.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that. I can hear that. It makes sense. It rings true. So I think you should do that. So, okay. So that's a plan. We can manifest that.
Yeah.
That's easy peasy.
Have you ever dealt with, I know it's nerdy, but this is, if there's writers watching this that are frustrated, have you dealt with using a literary agent to sell your work?
Oh, no.
I've never done that before.
I don't do that. I
Never in your career?
A couple of times I met these people. They seemed like interns to me. I could negotiate and get anything I wanted out of them. If you want someone to negotiate, I'm your lady.
It's more penetrating. Like, that's the thing. The problem with film for me was like, I can make an indie film and I could, send it to the festivals and I can do a screening at the Rio and different theaters. But for me to get it distributed and to sneak
Yes.
into the now.
But
like, how do
if
I
you got a
penetrate
good
the
publisher,
novel
say
into,
you get that publisher. This is how I see it. I'll envision it and then just share it with you. I think you should get that publisher, but I think they should be in UK, maybe Ireland. And then you get it published. It's a novella. It goes out in Ireland. It gets couple of good reviews, and then you just get translated into different languages. And your publisher, the UK publisher, would be doing that. Then you just need your agent, if you had an agent, to do the negotiation, which you're capable of doing yourself. I mean, really, like, what does an agent do? And so, okay,
I just wanna go to one
no
of the big
harm
dogs.
done with the agents, and anyone who has an agent, it's a great thing for you. But for me, it doesn't work. I also am an advocate, strong advocate of small presses, and I have been since the beginning of time. I would not go with a large publisher.
You wouldn't.
No, absolutely not. I'm
But when you look at like
I'm
Leonard,
grassroots.
Leonard did,
I know, but he's Leonard. I'm
and Margaret Atwood is
yeah,
she?
but she's Margaret. I'm Sheri-D,
I
who's an
know.
advocate of the small press, and I believe in small presses. I believe it's the voice of the people. I am from that ilk, and I'll stay there. I'm not. I had a large publisher approach me years ago, and I just said no.
What is your disdain for it?
I don't have a disdain for it. I have the love of small presses, and I have the love of.
Would you do both? Would you give one book to HarperCollins and give one to, something out of Salt Spring?
And I don't think HarperCollins wants my book, and I don't want HarperCollins. I think that I get to have a cover that expresses my work, and I get to put symbols in there, and I get to work with designers and go to their house and be human with them and drink tea and talk about work and sit there and watch them with the computer and seeing the symbols that I work with moving around the page, and that to me is all part of my work. And then if I want to take my book somewhere, I go there and I sell it to people, and there's not a whole bunch of middle people, and there's the middle people who all need to be fed, and it's actually I think for a writer like myself, it's much more it's easier, it's much more human, and you end up making more money if you do it yourself. And it does mean you have to work harder. It means that you have to plan your own tours. It means that you have to go to book fairs. It means that you have to do these things. But I like all that stuff.
I guess I like that.
And what is it?
I like that.
We live and we die. I keep on saying that.
100%. But
who
I
cares
also
the middle that.
I also know there is a, like, Johnny Cash and Bob Dylan were on Columbia Records,
Right.
And Aretha
But that was then.
and Aretha and Ray were on
What about
Atlantic.
now?
Let's. Well, he's still on Columbia, and so is Bruce Springsteen. I'm just saying, I think you can do both. Like when Jack maneuvered his deal, he started his own company, but so he controls everything, but it's distributed by Columbia.
I can see you doing both.
I just, I just know because
Do you want to?
Because I've done 4 books with small presses,
Right.
And I've also seen like the flip side, the books that are in a closet, and I also know that I can. The constant touring, I start to feel like a shoe salesman instead of like, I wanted to see the books that I love with the
But what are the books that
Hillary
sell?
Clinton biography when I'm at the airport.
Okay.
And I watch like Homegirl there, the sunflower, from Instagram, and she has the what is the sunflower, and then her second one.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And like I was at the Powell's in Portland, and I was in the poetry section, and I was there. What's his Basketball Diaries cat? All my friends are dead. Carroll, something Carroll. Isn't Jim Carroll, is it? Basketball Diaries?
Jim Carroll.
So I got his book, and I was looking, and then I saw this, The Flowers, and I'm like, I looked through it, and I was, those are some nice poems. And then I'm checking out, and it was the #1 book at the bookstore, and I'm like, I was like, oh, I just saw the title, you know. But then I Googled it. I got home, and it's like, no, and I was just like, that Hank Williams and Chuck Berry were on the jukebox meant that this country kid in Portland, Ontario, was able to access it. Right. And then it's the same with her poetry. It's accessible, and it took me much longer to discover the Jim Carrolls and the the Sonny Boy Williamsons and stuff, because it was a little, and that's rock and roll. Like I kind of get mad sometimes. Like I love the basketball diaries. I like that too. But the Motorcycle Diaries. When I discovered that book, I was like, God damn! And then they made a movie about it, and then I was like, I don't want to talk about that for 20 years, because it was like now everyone's talking about it. There is something about finding an underground artist and being like, oh my God, this is my candle.
That's my jam.
Yeah.
This is my jam. Like,
but it's fun to talk about that dance.
But that's the dance is whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And Ruby, I mean, she started writing her poems online. She was a text writer and lovely. I think that's great. For me, when I was, a little grasshopper, I went to a bookstore and I said, I want a book of poetry. And I later got to know the owner of that bookstore. His name was George. And George said, okay, come right this way. And he takes me, of course, to the back of the bookstore, and then he goes, here you go. And he gives me Hugh Prather, Hugh Prather. And he also ended up writing the Seagull book and stuff like that. But Notes to Myself, it was called. And I took that book, and I went and I read that book, and I had it for about a week. And I just went back to that bookstore, and I said, I'd like to return this book. And George said, generally that's not done. And what's going on? And, I think I was 11 maybe. And I said, it's not my thing. I thought poetry could move me, and this is dull. It's really nothing going on for me, and I just want to return and get my money back. And because my money is important to me, and I need my money back. He goes, what about if I sell you a different book? He takes me back to the back of the bookstore again, and he says, maybe you should try this. And it was Coney Island of the Mind. Mm-hmm. And I took it home, and I was just like, this is poetry! And
Who wrote that?
Ferlinghetti. And it was astounding to me. I mean, I was just like, this is what I was thinking about. Because I knew there was something about poetry that I had to do. And it was like, I really believe that's where I live, in that place. And yes, Ferlinghetti, but he
opened
started
up his own bookstore.
Small press. Yeah. It was him that published it himself.
Yeah, 100%.
And, yes, Ginsberg opened those doors, blah. But the truth is, that's where beauty lies. And it still, for me, lies there. And it lies in the independent bookstores.
Well, you don't have to pay. I'm sitting there, and I've been there for 30 years. I guess I just thought with the novel, I was like, maybe I would, just because like it was a new thing, a break from the poetry, that maybe I would try differently.
And I don't know. We're going to talk about this more.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about it at length, because we do that.
Yeah.
And so we're going to talk about it at length, and we're going to come up with the best plan, and then we're going to make it happen. because I believe that your work should be seen and heard in Ireland and internationally. And absolutely it is anyway, because you tour all over the world. And there's few people that do what you do, and that I know. And so I think that you're hugely successful already. And I think that it's going to, your journey is still just beginning as well, which is exciting.
The Stones' last record and Dylan's last record are in my favorites of their canon. I just say that because they have a song, You Think the Party's Over, but it's only just begun. It's a great record.
Yeah.
But it's truth. I was just heard a poet just talk about, a certain artist that have killed themselves. I mean, I was just talking about Anthony. And man, for all the things when you look back that look like life or death, and you rode it through, like, I remember the Z Boys movie about the skateboarders, and one of them became, is like Hawk, whatever the fuck his name is. He's a famous, but the kid that was gangster, and all this thing, he just didn't want that, and he ended up dying. I remember Koizin going, "We all thought about you when we saw that."
Oh.
And then, watching the story of, what's his name, from Joy Division, Love Will Tear Us Apart. Watching that movie, and at his crossroads of, being married and trying to be a rock and roller. And it's just like, every time when the battle came, when you're like, this is life or death, this is not good, my back is against the wall. But goddamn, the next 10 years were unbelievable. But it's tricky when you're in it to be able to pull back. But man, a lot of fucking artists just said fuck it and took it.
I know.
And it's shit.
I've crawled and I've gotten
even this
up.
bumpy road, it's,
You
look
get
at
up.
us.
You
We're sitting
get
here with
up and you dust yourself off and you
Fuck it.
go, what the hell? And I move on, and you dust yourself off and you dust yourself off. And sometimes you hit the wall, and then you're sliding down, and you can feel yourself sliding down, and you crash. And it happens. And it's meant to happen, because that's where the beauty is too. It's not all in. It's not all in the trophies and.
Well, there's something about, like, when people go, "How is Keith Richards still alive?" when you think of the ones that OD'd or died, or when you look at the Killer, or you look at who was another one that people were like, "We thought you'd be
William
dead."
Burroughs and like the many cockroaches that have lived before us, but
it's just really neat, the ones that ended up sticking, and you're like, God bless that motherfucker.
I have one question for you. Do you have a poem that lives in your body that you learned when you were young, and you don't even know why you learned it, and it's in your body and it's living there? And in a sense, it's kind of guiding you. This is Poems by Heart.
Darkness at the break of noon, shadows even the silver spoon, the handmade blade, the child's blue, and eclipses both the sun and moon. To understand you know too soon, there's no sense in trying. And pointed threads they bluff with scorn, suicide remarks are torn from the gold mouthpiece, the hollow horn plays wasted words, proves to warn that he not busy being born is busy dying. Temptation page flies out the door, you follow, find yourself at war. Watch waterfalls of pity roar, you feel the moan, but unlike before, you discover I'll just be one more person crying. So don't fear if you hear a foreign sound in your ear. It's all right, Ma. I'm only sighing. Bye-bye. When I first saw these, I wanted to be like Will Ferrell in Elf at the dentist's office while you're talking. Stop doing that. Stop doing that.
Have one.
You were doing the intro, and I
they're peppermints. Have a peppermint.
That's all right.
They're good for your stomach.
If they were cotton balls, baby.
Well, I think that that's a beautiful place to leave off. And I'm going to, luckily, see you tonight. And
If we always have Paris, Sherry.
we'll always have Paris. We'll always have Paris.